Welcome to my madness, ladies and gentlemen. Today I want to talk a little bit, as you can tell by the title, about this whole new controversy that's going across the toy tuber interwebs of resellers versus scalpers and what is the difference. Now, I don't honestly really want to talk so much about what's the difference between those two. I mean, we will talk about that. I kind of have made this video because the responses I'm seeing from all this controversy in the last handful of days has been kind of ridiculous and uninformed. And I guess I'm making this video more for that reason than I am to actually like define resellers versus scalpers. From what I understand and from what I was able to gather, the first video that kind of brought this to light was the Bobby Valla video of resellers versus scalpers. What's the difference? I watched that video and it was largely uneventful. I mean, to be honest, like there was nothing outwardly offensive in that video. He also never actually got to the point of the title of the video. Like he didn't define scalping, he didn't define reselling, and he didn't compare the two to call out the differences between the two, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that video. He makes those types of videos, just opinion pieces all the time. It's just the title was a little misleading because he didn't actually define the difference between a reseller and a scalper. But anyway, needless to say, plenty of other people have come out to try and do that for him, I think, because I've seen several other videos pop up. But the funny thing is like all the different things I'm seeing coming out about scalping versus reselling are all like people either saying this is my opinion on something and that's a hard line. So if it meets my definition of scalping, it's scalping. If it meets my definition of reselling, it's reselling. Without taking into consideration that there's a lot of nuance to that and your opinion certainly does matter to you, but not necessarily to everyone. And then the other thing I'm seeing mentioned is people just not understanding that these terms we're talking about, scalping, reselling, a term that I've not heard anybody use yet, but that like really needs to be discussed and talked about if you're going to talk about this topic, gray markets. Nobody's defining these terms, and when they are, they're defining them incorrectly, okay? So first and foremost, let me just say, this is something I'm very, very familiar with. There's another industry that I'm very, very intimate with, let's say. I have another YouTube channel kind of devoted to that. I've been doing that for 15 years, and without giving that away, because I don't like to talk about that channel on this channel, it involves products that, and in much more impactful ways than toys. That industry deals a lot with reselling and gray markets and scalping. It's a market that's very, very delicate and highly affected by certain things that happen in society. It's affected by emergency situations. It's something that deals with the ideas of scalping and gray markets a lot. And so I'm very familiar with that. And I've had these discussions many, many times about those particular products and that kind of little sector of the economy. So when we're talking about toys, you know, I feel very comfortable talking about it because I understand the difference between those two and I understand a lot of the nuances of this particular subject. One thing you have to get out of the way is like toys are not a necessary product, right? And so there are things that people are assigning to what we're talking about here with action figures that just simply are not really a factor. Like when it comes to scalping, there are legal definitions for scalping in many states and laws against doing that, especially in state of emergency situations, right? Perfect example is Hurricane Florida with generators or gasoline, right? People go into an area, buy up all the gasoline or buy up all the generators and then try to flip them to people in that area for 3 times the price, right? Like there are laws against that type of stuff, but those are necessary items, especially during a time of emergency. That does not apply to toys. And I've heard some people make that argument. I'm like, that doesn't apply to toys. The other side of it is I've heard massive misinterpretations of what the word reseller means. Reseller is a legitimate like industry term when it comes to retail, right? And I've seen some people that are like, oh, I own a shop and this and that, and you know, I'm a reseller. No, dude, no, you're not. Like, you're totally not a reseller, bro. Just because you buy something from a distributor and then sell it for a profit doesn't make you a reseller. A reseller has a very, very specific definition in industry terms. That is somebody who buys at retail to sell to consumers for a profit. You don't buy at retail. And by retail, if you don't understand what that means, that doesn't mean you bought it at a retail store. That means you bought it for retail price, otherwise known as MSRP, right? The agreed upon price between manufacturer, distributor, and retailer, okay? You're selling it for an agreed upon price. And sometimes that agreed upon price isn't a specific price, it's a price range. Like okay, you can sell this thing between $22.99 and $26.99 or whatever it is. There's an agreed upon price or price range. Retailers sell at that. Resellers buy from those retailers to sell to consumers. Those people are in no way, shape, or form resellers. That was going around on Facebook for a while that, well, everybody's a reseller. No, that's not true at all. You don't understand these terms if you're saying that. And that's part of the problem, part of the reason why I'm making this video, because it was just annoying me, to be honest, that people were just getting basic definitions for things so wrong. Because let me be real clear, ultimately, I don't give a shit about this topic. You may be surprised that I'm putting this much effort into a video I don't give a shit about, because I don't care about resellers and scalpers. I don't buy things from scalpers. I do occasionally buy things from resellers, and I'll explain my version of the difference between those two things. But as I said, that's also very personal. You kind of have to make your own decision on what's being resold versus what's being scalped. But I just don't buy this stuff. Like, I don't buy from scalpers. I never have. I never will. There's nothing that I want so bad in this particular, sector of the economy of goods and services that I don't need, i.e. action figures. I don't need this stuff. I do it for fun. I will never pay a scalper for an action figure. I don't care how much I want it. I will never do it. And in fact, most figures, I won't ever pay from a reseller. Most figures I don't buy from resellers. Most figures I buy at retail, or I buy from resellers who are reselling used products, and usually I'm getting a deal. I'm a cheap bastard. I refuse to spend ridiculous money on this. So ultimately, I don't care about this particular topic. Like, I know a lot of people are passionate about it because they feel like they're getting ripped off all the time. Well, sorry to tell you, but like, you're doing it to yourself. Just don't buy it. These are not necessary items. Just don't buy it. Like, I get you want it. We all want a lot of things. But if you feel like you're getting ripped off, that's a clue you shouldn't be buying these things. Again, I'm not making this because I have some big stake in scalpers and resellers and all that stuff. I ultimately don't care. I really don't. I don't give a shit. As somebody who's dealt with this particular topic as it relates to other products, which, while some people would argue how necessary those products are, I certainly think, and I think most people would agree, they're far more necessary than toys are. It kind of annoyed me to hear so many people talking about it in a way in which it was very clear they don't know what they're talking about, and they have no understanding or concept of the relationship that goes on between manufacturers, distributors, retailers, resellers, scalpers, and consumers. It's like basic, simple stuff. So anyway, to move on here, because this is gonna be a long video, but I don't care because I'm just rambling. Another term that we just don't hear about is the term gray market. What is a gray market? Well, a gray market, very simply, is when any person or group of people insert themselves unwantedly, if that's a word, okay, without being told to do so by consumers or retailers. They insert themselves into the middle of that transaction between the consumer and the end retailer, whoever that may be. In this case, we're talking about toys, so let's say Walmart, Target, Amazon, whatever, right? You have the retailer, you have the consumer, and somebody else inserts themselves in between the two of those things for the express purpose of profiting off of buying everything from the retailer to then turn around and sell it for a profit to the consumer who wants the product. You have created a gray market. Now, this is a term that's used a lot in the financial sector, but it applies to pretty much every sector across the board, every sector of the economy that's invested in sales, right? In selling products, I should say. You've created a gray market. So ultimately, resellers and scalpers are all part of a gray market because the motivation is the same. Hate to tell you this, guys. Okay, the motivation is the same whether you're a retailer, or excuse me, a reseller or a scalper. Your motivation is the same. You're buying something to sell to a consumer for a profit. Again, where's that line between the two? I'll explain that a little bit in a minute, according to my personal opinion. But you're creating a gray market every time you do that. Now, gray markets can be good or bad, but they always have the same motivation and they always have the same process of actions that lead to it. Examples of good gray markets: consumer electronics, specifically in high-end cameras. This is something that happens a lot. There are many companies, Sony, JVC, Panasonic, they have these deals with manufacturers in the US to sell, let's say, a specific camera for $1,500, and they're told, you will sell this for $1,500. It's an expensive camera. Boom, done. You want to go buy it at Amazon, you want to go buy it at any of these retailers, Best Buy, Fry's, if they're still a thing, I don't even know. You're going to pay $1,500 for it. And then groups of people get together and go, hey, we can buy that same camera directly from China from distributors over there for $500. And then we can turn around and sell it here for $1,000. We've doubled our money, which by the way is more than Best Buy's gonna do. Best Buy's probably making 7 to 15%. These resellers go over there, they're doubling their money. They're going from spending $500 to selling it for $1,000, and you, the consumer, have just saved $500. So there are situations in which gray markets, resellers, are not scalpers at all. In fact, they're actually saving you money. Now, that does not happen in action figures. I get that. That just doesn't happen. But again, the idea is the same, regardless of the end result. When you take part in a gray market, when you are a reseller or a scalper, however someone defines you, you are doing what you're doing, which is buying at retail to sell to consumers for the reasoning and motivation of profit. You want to make money. Otherwise, what's the point of doing it? You wouldn't do it. You're not doing it just to be nice. You're doing it to make profit. So ultimately, from that angle, the difference between resellers and scalpers is nothing. They're all the same. They bought something that potentially you could have bought at the store to make money. So what's the real difference? Well, for me, I kind of use the example of, again, personal, but you know, the 50% rule, which says that if something's only marked up 50% or less, I don't really consider it scalping, right? You go on eBay and they've got a $25 Marvel Legend that somebody online is selling for 35 bucks. I don't consider that scalping. Why? Well, because they may be doing a service for someone. Not everyone. A lot of people be like, that's too much money. I'll just go dig around and find it at retail. Cool, good on you, but not everybody wants to do that. So some people are willing to pay that extra $10 between the 25 and the 35 to just be able to hop online from their phone and know it's going to show up a week later. It's convenient for them. I don't consider that scalping. Some people would say, that's ridiculous. You've objected. Who cares, dude? Like, no, I've done that plenty of times. I didn't want to go around every Walmart looking for something when I can hop online, pay an extra 10 bucks for it. I'm fine, whatever. I don't consider that scalping. You may, that's fine. And again, this is where it gets into personal opinion. What I consider scalping is anything that doubles or more the price of something with no rational backing behind why that's happened. Examples of this happen literally all the time in the toy community on eBay, right? Like this is all like McFarlane releases some toy for $22.99 and you look over and they're selling it for 50 bucks on eBay. That's ridiculous. Why? Was there not a lot made? Is that the problem? No. He makes tons of stuff. Okay. Is it a particularly sought after character? No. Okay, then why? That's scalping, right? The other side of that, of course, is sometimes you go and you look at something and it's ridiculously priced, at least you think so, but it might be for good reason. A great example was the Killing Joker from DC Multiverse, from McFarlane, right? I didn't jump on that thing when I should. I've been wanting it for a while, but that thing has steadily increased in price. Now it is selling for anywhere from $70 to $100 on average, which is way more than retail. We're talking 3 to 4 times retail. Do I consider that scalping? No, I don't. Because first of all, that figure's no longer at retail. And second, that is an iconic look for Joker from one of the most iconic Batman and Joker stories ever. Of course it was going to be highly sought after. Right? Now I haven't picked it up because I'm not willing to pay that much money. I'd love to have it in my collection, but I ain't paying that much money for it. Oh well. But that's an example of while you may see a price that is 2, 3, 4 times what retail was, that's not scalping, that's market value. But ultimately, it's all personal. Because again, for an example here, made a video about this. I paid $90 for an SDCC exclusive Death's Head last month or whenever it was. I paid that, I think the Sunday of San Diego Comic-Con. Somebody had posted it on eBay and it's like a $35 figure, I believe. And I paid $55 on top of retail for that thing. I didn't feel like I was buying it from a scalper and I certainly didn't feel ripped off. To me, it was worth it in that moment because I knew it was going to be released from Hasbro Pulse at some time, but I didn't know when, and I didn't want to have to sit there and wait by my computer for the exact minute it was going to come out to make sure I got one. I know what going to SDCC is like. It ain't cheap just to go there, much less stand in line and wait for a figure and all this other stuff. And the way I looked at it was, I wasn't going to do that. So I'm paying this guy a premium for him putting in the effort, and I was willing to pay the upcharge. Some people would say that's scalping. I don't. Again, personal opinion, right? That's what it boils down to. So in the end, let me kind of simplify all this for everybody. Resellers, scalpers, anybody who involves themselves in creating a gray market for a product, you're pretty much all the same. They are buying from the retailer to sell to the consumer with the express purpose of making a profit. That's kind of the end of it. I mean, really, because everything after that is really just personal opinion. You have to decide where that line is for you, as far as at what point in this potentially making profit for this reseller does it then become, oh, now it's scalping. You have to decide that. Is it at 25% upcharge? Is it at 50%? Is it at 100%? Is it when they're doubling the price? You have to decide what that is. Because from just a pure market perspective, the difference between scalpers and resellers is really nothing. They're all the same. They all insert themselves in between the retailer and the consumer for no other reason other than to make a profit, okay? Because they're certainly not doing it to lose money. They're not going to turn around and sell this stuff for less money than they bought it for. So they're doing it to make a profit, whether that profit is 10%, 25%, 50%, 100%, 300%. They're doing it for the same reasons, and they're doing the same thing. They're creating a gray market for a product. They're inserting themselves between you and the retailer. So ultimately what it comes down to is resellers, scalpers. You may have feelings about one and not the other, like I do, but ultimately they're the same thing.